Now we're going to look at decimals and mixed numbers. Mixed numbers have a whole number and a fraction. So our first step is we need to change the mixed number to a decimal. So our whole number is 2 and our fraction is 1/10. So I'm going to write 1/10. The 1 is in the 10th spot. All right, so let's go ahead and change this number. So we have 2 and 71/100ths. And that's in the 10th, it ends in the 100th spot. Now that we have our 4 fractions, we're going to go ahead and line the decimals up like buttons on a shirt. So right here we have the 4 decimals nicely lined up, and I also space it out. I write big when I'm comparing and ordering decimals. So also I neatly write each number. I write it big and spaced out. Now we can compare each number column by column. Let's start with the very first column, which is our biggest place, which is the ones place. We have 2, 2, 2, 2. We cannot compare, so we move to the next column. Be very careful to get just the tenths. Okay, so we have 2.0, and then we have 2.1, 2.0, 2.7. We can very quickly see that we have a biggest number right here. So we can go ahead and set that up. I'm going to write it over here. 2 and 71/100ths is my biggest number. Okay. Zeros, these 2 zeros are the smallest numbers. So I know that I'm going to have 2 spots with those 2 numbers. But I can figure out that the second biggest number is this 2 and 1/10 right here. So I'm going to go ahead and set that one up. Okay. Now we're going to look at the 2 zeros. So we have 2.0, 2.0. When we cannot compare, we move to the next column. So we have 2.01 and 2.07. The 7 is bigger, so that's going to go to your next biggest number. So 2 and 7/100ths is going to go over there. Mark it out, and you're left with your smallest number, although it looks like the biggest number because it has so many digits. 2 and 17/100ths. Sometimes I like to space it out or write these spacers instead of commas so we don't mix everything up. So that's how you compare mixed numbers and decimals. You have to turn all the mixed numbers to decimals, line it up like buttons on a shirt, and then compare it column by column. So far we've practiced just ordering decimals, but now we're going to order fractions and decimals. So all of them together. There's just one small extra step when you have fractions. You have to turn the fraction into a decimal. So looking at this first fraction, I would read it from top to bottom, from numerator to denominator, and it has no whole numbers next to it, so I would say 0 because there's no whole numbers to the side of it. It's not a mixed number, it's a fraction. So 0 and 7/10. And I'm going to make sure that that's in the 10th spot. Now I'm going to look at the second fraction, and I'm going to read it also. It has 0 whole numbers, so 0, and reading it from top to bottom, numerator to denominator, 0 and 25/100ths. Let me double check it's in the 100th spot. Tenths, hundredths. So we're good? Now that we've changed every number to a decimal, we can order it just like we've been practicing. The first thing is I have 4 numbers, so I line up 4 decimals like buttons on a shirt. Again, like buttons on a shirt. Then I very neatly write all the numbers. I make sure I line up every place. I line up the whole numbers, the tenths with the tenths, and the hundredths with the hundredths, and there are no thousandths. Now I look at each number column by column. So this first column, which is 0, 0, 0, 0, they're all the same. If they're all the same, I can't compare. When you can't compare, you go to the next column. Okay, we've got some really good stuff going on here because I can compare. So I have a 2, a 7, a 1, and a 2. So right there, I can already see the biggest number and the smallest number. So I'm going to go ahead and set that up. 7 is the biggest, So I put 7 where the greatest number is. This 1 is the smallest, so I put the 1 right here where the smallest number, the least number, should go. Now that I'm done with those two numbers, I'm going to go ahead and mark them out. Okay, now I'm looking at this, which is this top number, which is 0.2 and 0.2. Whenever I can't compare, I go to the next column. Okay, so this number right here is done for. So if we look, if there's nothing here, that counts as a 0. So if we look, we have a 5 and we have a 0. All right, can you tell which one is bigger out of the two? Yep, it is the 0.25 is bigger than 0.20. So we're going to set that up. So 0.25 was bigger, so we put it right here. And 0.2 was smaller, so we put it right here. And now I have ordered all my decimals from least to greatest. So same steps, except for you have the added step of changing your fraction to a decimal. And then you line it up like buttons on a shirt, and then order it column by column.